Hello, my name is Dan Skipbound, and this is Bleacher Features, where myself and guests we discuss a sports film and we break it down from beginning to end. And obviously, I can't do this show by myself. It wouldn't be fun if I sat here and talked about a movie by myself. Plus, it's the guest that wanted to talk about this movie, and that's the whole reason why I brought this guest on, is because they asked me, "Hey, can we talk about Creed?" And that's the episode we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about Creed on this episode. And my guest is Mr. Kirk Kowolkowski. Kirk, welcome on Bleacher Features, my summer series where we talk about a sports movie. I know you were passionate about Creed. What is it about this movie? And we'll get into the whole movie eventually. But why did you want to come on and talk about this movie?
I just think this is, past, 5-10 years, there have been so many remakes, so many reboots, and 99% of them fall flat. They're terrible. They just felt what they're doing. This movie is a clinic on how to do a reboot. If you're out there and you want to restart a franchise, watch this movie and see how they do it. It just does it perfectly. It captures the heart and the energy of the original, but doesn't lean too hard on it. It respects what came before, but still creates something new. Strikes that perfect balance. And yeah, I think it's just a great, restart and just a great addition to this franchise.
No, I agree. I mean, as a fan growing up with the Rocky franchise, especially Rocky 1, 2, 3, and 4, those four to me are just four fantastic films. Say whatever you want about those films. I was very skeptical about this being restarted as a friend, but I shouldn't have been, because Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan, I mean, they've done 3 movies together and they've all been fantastic. So, of course, Coogler didn't direct the second Creed, but we're not talking about that one. We're talking about this one right now. So, all right, let's get into the cast and so forth. And
Sure.
Have you got anything to say about any of these people, or any notes you wanted to say? Just let me know. Of course, we got, I already mentioned, Adonis Creed, Michael B. Jordan, Sylvester Stallone as himself, and we'll get into talking about him a little bit later. Tessa Thompson as Bianca, Felicia Rashad as Mary Ann Creed, Wood Harris as Tony Little Duke Burton, Andre Ward as Danny Stuntman Ward, Tony Bellew as Pretty Ricky Conlon, Ricky Oster as Pete Sperino, Jacob Duran as Stitch, Graham McTavish as Tommy Holiday. The composer is actually in this movie as a member of Bianca's band, and that's Ludwig Göransson. We'll talk about him a little bit later on as well. Gabriel Rosado as Leo the Lion Sperino. Kevin King Templeton, the guy who's doing the press conference. He was the host of the press conference. Michael Buffer as himself as the ring announcer. Max Kellerman, ESPN commentator, as color commentator. Jim Lampley, HBO commentator, as himself, announcer, color commentator. Michael Wilbon, host of PTI, as himself on PTI. Hannah Storm, ESPN Sports Center host, and a kind of a little kind of cameo deal here. Liev Schreiber as HBO 24 narrator, 24/7. So that's a little, they added him in there. Obviously, I said the director was Ryan Coogler. Screenplay, Coogler and Aaron Covington. And like I said, the score, Ludwig Göransson. You got any thoughts about all these guys?
Yeah, I mean, just to start with the top. I definitely think that bringing Stallone back was the right thing to do. I think he plays the character. The thing I love about Rocky is how personal that character is to Stallone, and how it reflects his real life. in a lot of ways, starting with, Rocky 1 and just about how that was him coming up and getting this movie made that nobody thought he could do and doing everything it took, and then even going through Rocky Balboa, that movie was about him, just the idea of coming back. Can he do it again? And, this is, him dealing with, in this movie, it's him dealing with his mortality, dealing with his, growing older and, passing it on. And I know there was a lot of, behind the scenes, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of feelings about, losing his son and dealing with that. So I think he was, he's a great addition to this cast. Michael B. Jordan obviously is great as Creed. I think he's just perfect for that role. It's a very nuanced role. There's a lot going on there. We'll talk about it throughout the story. But he just nails it. He brings it home. And I really like the choice of Felicia Rashad as his mom. She is, she's you really haven't seen her in years. She's mostly known for TV, and to bring her in something like this, and I think in that small role, she killed it. I mean, she's very, very powerful in that role, and you really feel the connection between her and Adonis. So yeah, I think those are probably my favorite three of the cast. Also, you brought up a lot of the real world stuff, and I've always liked it about Rocky is how they add that real world element. The part of the interruption and the HBO. I don't know if it's HBO or Showtime, but the like you said, the Max Kellerman, all those people, like the real life boxing people. That really brings, I think, has always brought a lot to the Rocky franchise. It makes it feel a lot more real, a lot more grounded when they bring all those real life characters in.
Yeah, you love it with sports films when they bring the ESPN or the Baseball Tonight or the different football announcers, because that makes it feel a little bit more real when you're watching the movie. Oh, okay, maybe this could actually be a real sports movie, And they really go to the extra length in Creed with those personalities. So I love that as well. All right, let's get into this. So we're in Los Angeles in 1998. We're at a boys' detention center, and then there's some boys fighting, and then we see mom. Mom comes to see Adonis Johnson, not Creed, at the detention center. That's his name that he was given. It's not Creed. So he tells his mom he got in a fight because the other guy said something about her. So, of course, and I'll tell you a quick story. My brother is the same way. My younger brother, if anybody said anything about me, my other brother, my family, I mean, he'll drop gloves right there and fight you because you don't talk about our family. And so I understand that reference because my brother was the same way. So then mom invites him to stay with her. And of course, this leads to him asking her what his name is, what his father's name is. And of course, we all know what his father's name is, but that starts leading him down that road. And needless to say, we're in Tijuana, Mexico. That road leads to Tijuana, Mexico. In 2015, he's in a boxing match. He knocks the guy out. And then now we're in California again. But he's an adult. He's not a kid anymore. It's been some years. He goes from Tijuana to his actually day job. This guy's fighting in Tijuana, Mexico, but he's got a day job in Los Angeles. But so 12 hours later, he's in Los Angeles. He works for a company called Smith & Bordley Financial Group. He's in the office building, walks into his boss's office, quits his job after getting a promotion. The boss gives him a promotion not that long ago, but he's not fulfilled. Adonis isn't fulfilled in his life. This job doesn't fulfill him. So he walks into his boss's office and he quits right on the spot. And then he has to go home and break the news to his mother. And his mother basically has him. He's watching YouTube videos of his father versus Rocky. And then we fast forward to him shadow boxing. So we know what he wants at this point now. Once he knows who his name is, who he is, and he goes to Tijuana, and then he quits his job. We know the path that he is going on, and it is in a trajectory in this direction that he just wants to be a boxer at this point in his life, and he wants to be successful as somebody that is related to his father. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think like that. That opening scene, I think just really does a great job of establishing the character. And just he's, even before, he knows who knows the legacy he carries. He's a fighter, and that's just that he's fighting to get through life. And I think just the way and the kid that plays him does a really good job. But just that's just his first instinct is to fight. And then you go and flash forward. You talked about the shadow box. I think it's very significant that part where he shadow boxes on the TV. He's actually shadow boxing against his father, and that's just very telling, just about like the struggle he has with that legacy that he carries. I think that goes a long way as to why he's not satisfied doing anything else.
Yeah. All right. So now we're in the Delphi Boxing Academy, home of his father. This is where his father trained. The trainer turns Adonis down as his trainer. He asks him, "Hey, I want you to be my trainer," and he says, "No, I don't want to be your trainer." And he ends up sparring with the guy, Kevin Banks, and he bets his Mustang. That he could beat the guy, and then he spars with another guy, and he beats that guy. He knocks him out, and so obviously, this is now showing us that he isn't playing around, that he's good at boxing. The gene doesn't fall far from the tree in this case of the boxing gene, because he's knocking these guys out that have had training and that are working in the gym and stuff. And this guy's been fighting in Tijuana. So, not real. He never really had any real boxing training.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, I like movies about people who are just kind of like floating through life and trying to find their place in the world. And I think that scene does a really good job of just establishing, because he doesn't really have a place, because he doesn't fit in, even though he's been at this point raised like in affluence and has had a pretty good life. He doesn't fit into that world. He doesn't feel comfortable there. But when he goes to when he goes into the boxing world, he's seen as just he's the rich. He's like, get out of here. You don't need to be here. These guys are here because they're fighting for their lives. You have nothing to fight for. You're just a soft rich kid. So he really doesn't have a play. He doesn't have anywhere to belong. I would like that about that scene.
Yeah. So after he knocks out Danny Wheeler, the trainer still says to him, you have to learn the hard way, because you just can't walk in here and just knock guys out and just think you're just going to get everything easy. So you have to learn the hard way. So then he goes to his mother. Mother lectures him about his father and the dangers of boxing, which, if you didn't have that speech, I think you'd be missing something, The mother's lecturing about the dangers of boxing, So needless to say, he ends up in your home state of Pennsylvania, except on the other side of the state.
The wrong side, though.
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He ends up in Philly because he knows who's in Philly. He knows who's in Philly. And then he goes and he sees the pictures of the Rocky statue, then he visits Adrian's restaurant. We know who owns Adrian's restaurant, Then he finally sees Rocky, and Rocky's like, "How you doing?" And he asked Rocky to train him. And of course, he gets his lecture again. Now Rocky turns him down, because Rocky's given this up. He's out of the game, and he doesn't want anything to do with this world anymore. He had his time in the sun, and he had his time to shine, and he did it now, and he got away from the boxing game. So he turns Adonis down. So Adonis tells Rocky all this stuff he already knows. So basically, like any young guy, he knows everything. Be honest with me. if you've been around any kids, they know it all, don't they? You know, so Adonis knows it all, you know. And then he says that he remembers that Rocky gave a nice speech at his father's funeral. So, and then he was going back to this again, going back to the well here again. I need somebody to train me, he says. You know, Rocky says he'd rather be here talking with, in other words, he'd rather have Adonis there talking with him instead of him. You know what I mean? Which, Apollo, not, yeah. So he knows he can't be a father to Adonis. That's basically, what this amounts to is like Adonis is looking for a father figure, and he thinks that his father figure is Rocky at this point.
And I think I like this scene because it's realistic, because he just springs this on Rocky, and Rocky doesn't really know what to do. And I think it brings up a lot of feelings, of guilt that Rocky has over Apollo's death and all that. So, he doesn't know what to do. I think he knows for Apollo, he owes this kid something, but it's not what. And I think, it's, do I bring him into this world? Is that what Apollo would have wanted, after he died doing it? And I think that's where the hesitation comes. I think that's a lot what Rocky's struggling through this movie is, this kid is my family. But what do I do with it? How do I help him? Is training the box the right thing to do? Is getting him into this world, or should I keep him away from it, keep him safe like I didn't keep his father safe?
Yeah, absolutely. So Adonis goes to visit Mighty Mick's gym. And then the question comes up, who won the third fight? I heard there was a third fight. Who won the third fight? And Rocky tells him Apollo won the third fight.
I was surprised that they gave that information up so quickly. That's the one thing. I kind of wish they either would have kept it a secret or would have maybe saved it for later and build up some tension. The fact he just says it really surprised me, because that's a big deal in Rocky lore, and for them to just kind of drop that like that was kind of surprising to me. Like I said, I don't know how I feel about it. It's cool to know what happened, but it's one of those things where I almost feel like I would have rather been kept ambiguous.
Yeah, that was kind of a nice thing in Rocky 3, where we don't get to see what happens in that third fight. That was kind of cool that was out there, right?
Yeah.
But, all right, so now we're on HBO Sports, as I said when I was talking about boxing show narrated by Liev Schreiber, 24/7. They're talking about the Conlon Wheeler fight. Now, Wheeler's the guy that Adonis just knocked out in LA. We just saw that. So that just gives you a little context here. Wheeler's about to fight this other guy, Conlon, for a championship. And Adonis had already knocked him out. So Adonis wakes up, goes down, and knocks on a girl downstairs door and tells her to turn her music down. All right, so his apartment that he got is upstairs of a girl who's obviously, she's a singer. She's got music, and we don't find out there's something. She has a disability. We won't find out just yet what the disability is, but he tells her to turn her music down. This is our introduction to Bianca, Tessa Thompson here. Then we get to Leo Sperino is talking about the Lion, which is his son, is 17-0. And then obviously we go back to Bianca. She's singing again in a nightclub. Composer, which is Ludwig Göransson, the composer of the score, is on keyboards in her band. I always like that Kugler threw in Göransson in there as the guy over the keyboards. It's like, oh my God, what a great little. I mean, if you're Göransson, you're like, oh, this is nice. This is a nice little bone you're throwing me here. I get to be in the keyboard, get to be in the movie instead of just composing the score, you know.
And I mean, since we're talking about him, I mean, we also talk about the score. I think that's something they really did. You know, going back to talking about what I was saying before, that this movie mixes the old and new so well. That's something the score really does. The fact that it's new and it's very unique to Donnie Creed, but it also brings back a lot of the themes at the right moments. It's there's build up and that pays off, and it's just at the right moments you get those beats of the old Rocky score. But it's something completely new and completely fresh.
Yeah, that's. I mean, look with any franchise, you want to have the feeling of what but also how. And John Williams used to do this the best.
Yeah,
like he'd put those themes of the characters of Darth Vader and all these other people, but then also expound on that and make other things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the prequels and some of the different movies he was able to do after Star Wars. So, and that's great that Göransson. That tells you right there, Göransson. I mean, we all know he ends up winning an Academy Award eventually for the score of Creed. I mean, Black Panther eventually.
Yeah.
So we know he does. He knows what he's doing, and they're friends, I believe. Don't quote me on this, but I believe they went to college together. Coogler, and that's how this connection got started.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So then we get the Hannah Storm, which I mentioned, ESPN Sports Center. Fight off because the guy hits the other guy. Okay, so at the press conference, Wheeler get in the face of Conlon, and he knocks him out, and he basically injures him so bad that he can't fight. So now Conlon doesn't have anybody to fight because Wheeler's off. We already know Danny Wheeler was the guy that Adonis knocked out in California, so there's that connection there. So then Adonis goes back by to visit Rocky at the restaurant again, Adrian's restaurant. Tells Rocky he doesn't go by his father's name. He goes by, obviously, he hasn't gone by Creed. He went by Johnson, his mother's name instead. So Rocky gives him some advice about working out. He tells Rocky about how he has his notes on his phone and in the cloud, and Rocky says, "What cloud?" All right. So I love this stuff because this tells you how all life has gone into technology, how it's improved, and how there's a disconnect between like an old guy like Rocky, who they just train and they just do things and they just go out and they practice and they train and they spar, and where this guy's taking his notes, he's putting it down in his phone, and it's in the cloud, and Rocky's like, "What's the cloud?" Look, you're gonna love this kind of stuff. This stuff really kind of is like some funny stuff. You know what I mean?
And I think this is a really like nice connection moment for the two of them. It just happens real quick, but it's a moment I love where he asks him to write some stuff down, so he starts writing it, and Rocky's he's had his issues. And I forget what I think. Oh, he's telling him to shadow box, and he's like, and Rocky stops for a minute, and Adonis is like SHA or SHAD, like help him spell it, and just that little moment of like understanding of who Rocky, where Rocky's at in his life, and Creed's response to that. It's a very sweet moment between the two, and I think it's like you see that already that connection between them starting to form. Like it wasn't like he didn't criticize everything. He just said like I'll help you, and it shows you the kind of guy Creed is. Especially also in that same scene, it's like he's helping him carry the boxes and everything. Just shows he's a real down to earth guy. He's a good guy, and he cares about people. He cares about this guy, even though he doesn't really know him that well.
Yeah. And he asks him if he has a girlfriend or something.
Yeah.
And he tells him, I like this girl.
Mm-hmm.
I have a girl that I kind of like, and that leads us to he walks downstairs and asks Bianca to go get some food with him, and she agrees. Of course, you can have a boxing movie in Philadelphia or a movie in general in Philadelphia. You're going to go get some food. What are you going to go get? You're going to go get some cheesesteaks.
Sure.
I would be going to get cheesesteaks if I was in Philadelphia. I'll tell you that right now. And I love cheesesteaks. I have a Philly connection down here where I live, and they are amazing cheesesteaks, but it's still not Philadelphia cheesesteaks.
Sure.
You probably know a little bit something about that, even though you're on the west side of Pennsylvania. We go to Max's Cheesesteaks place. Max, huge place in Philly. So that's great that got in there. Girl gets Adonis about her. Bianca finally tells Adonis that she's got hearing problems, and that's why she has the music up loud. That's one of the reasons. Because you don't have any kind of when you can't hear, you don't know how loud something is.
Mm-hmm.
Adonis tells her why he wants to fight because of his father. So basically, he breaks it to her who his father is, and then she talks about how singing makes her feel alive, and he asked her to come to the next gig. She asked him to come with her to the next gig. She says he'll think about it. So, this cat and mouse game between a man and a woman. Of course, you're going to have a little bit of that. And then Rocky's over there visiting Paulie's grave. Rocky talks to the grave while reading the newspaper. He's reading the newspaper to Paulie's grave. I mean, he's like, what the heck is this? This is funny. But it tells you how much, no matter what a pain in the ass Paulie was, he still went over there and read the newspaper to his grave, it tells you how much he cares about people, Rocky, that he did that,
Yeah, and I mean, that was he's a it's Paulie and it's Adrian, and it's the two of them together there, and that's all he has left. I think this is the moment in the movie where he realizes that he needs Adonis in his life. I mean, he needs a person, because he's sitting there, and the only two people he really had any connection with are gone now, and he's still holding on to that, but he needs to. He realizes he needs to get on with his life and do something. And that this is the moment in the movie, I think, where he realized, okay, this is, I got to make this connection with this kid.
Yeah, absolutely. So he ends up visiting Mighty Mick's gym. Pete introduces him to his son, to Rocky. So, and then Rocky tells Adonis about his father, and he starts telling him about his father. So we're starting to get what you just mentioned, that connection. Tells him how his father was really, really special. Rocky says if he doesn't do things right, he's out. And of course, Adonis starts training Adonis. And one of the fun things about the Rocky movies, and a lot of other movies have kind of stolen some of this stuff, is the training montages, the goofy things that you do in training, and of course they do it in Creed. If they're going to do it in Rocky and Rocky 4 and some of these movies, you got to do it in Creed. You can't leave that part out, So
I love this scene, this montage, because it starts. It shows you like their relationship starting to build, and I love how they go back. They the call back to the chicken, him chasing the chicken, and everything, and just bringing back some of the old school stuff. And I love the dynamic here. It's going to set up that that next fight. Where you have Pete, who wants Rocky to help with his son, and you watch the two of them training, and you always see Pete in the background just kind of watching them, and he's like kind of steaming. You can tell he's jealous that that Creed's getting all that attention. So I like that about too. Like there's a lot of stuff going on. It's not just the training montage. There's a lot of story building there and character building.
No, you're absolutely right. And one of the things I love is that, when they do start the training, it's like the bell means hell. I like the bell means hell. Oh, boy, here we go. And like you said, the chickens, the chickens are slowing down. You can't catch the chickens and stuff. And then he uses the mirror trick, shadow box into the mirror. That you see your form that way. You see how you need to hold your hands and everything. And then Adonis sings at Bianca's place, makes her laugh. Of course, this guy's a boxer. He's not a singer. Of course, he can't sing. But Pete asks Adonis what he weighs, tries to set up fight with his son. Rocky says he'll think about it. Adonis wants to fight. Where Adonis, of course, young guy, he wants to fight Leo. He does. So, but Rocky, of course, we know, is thinking, you got to think about that. You just can't just jump into things. So Adonis invites himself to move into Rocky's place to get into fighting shape. Oh boy, here we go. The last thing he wanted to do. You knew he was in trouble when he did this. So tells Bianca he's moving in with his uncle. Bianca says, "When were you going to tell me Rocky Balboa was your uncle?" I'm like, well, that's kind of an important detail. Like anybody in Philly knows who Rocky Balboa is. Even a deaf girl who's a singer, she knows who Rocky Balboa is. So when were you going to tell me that your uncle was Rocky Balboa? So I got a kick out of that. So he ends up going into Polly's bedroom. That's where he ends up staying. And then that's when Rocky kind of breaks down a little bit and talks about his son and Polly, and the people that mean the most to him. His son and how his son moved away, and that hurt Rocky that his son moved away.
Yeah.
And of course when Polly wasn't always nice to him, but he still loved Polly. Rocky did. And I love this. He wakes up to this music.
Yeah.
And Rocky takes him to a different gym. He's not having him train at Mighty Mick's gym. He takes him to a different gym, like all the way across town. This gym isn't like close to where they live. It's like a ways away. But you can't train in the gym of the guy that you're going to fight. So Rocky, once again, thinking where Adonis wouldn't have thought of stuff like that,
Well, I like this too, because this is where you really start to see, well, even in the training montage before, you really start to see, Rocky becoming the Mickey character, just how much of, that wisdom, because you see Rocky, you listen to Rocky, you just think he's just kind of like this dumb palooka, but, he really picked up, everything that he was told, all that stuff he learned really stuck with him. And, he's passing that on.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is some of the funnest parts of the movie, how Rocky turns out to be Mickey.
Yeah.
And it's like you think to yourself, it's perfect casting. You get Rocky to become Mickey, and then it's full circle, So Rocky rides in the van while Adonis runs. Another great scene. Rocky's riding in the van and Adonis is running.
That's not that far.
Front Street Gym. They end up going a long ways to the Front Street Gym, like I said, much further away. So Rocky introduces Adonis to the guys in the gym, his corner men. Adonis gets into argument with sparring partner. And okay, one step at a time, one round at a time, and one fight at a time. This to me really resonated with me as a person. I mean, this is a movie, and we watch movies for entertainment. But if you could really take something from a movie and really put it into your own life, I feel like you could take this right here. One step at a time, one round at a time, one fight at a time. That's something you could use in your own life, let alone being a boxer, because it's just like going to school, getting a job, going off into the world, marrying somebody, one step at a time, one day at a time, one ring at a time, one fight at a time. That's how you could really relate to that. And I really relate to that on a personal level as a man. And I'm thinking to myself, you don't even have to be a boxer, and you can relate that to your.
Well, that's like I said earlier. That's the point of these movies, that it's a metaphor for real life, and that's always, I think that's always how he intended it. It was never a boxing movie. It's just about life, and how are you going to get through life? How are you going to overcome stuff? And so, yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense. That's exactly, I think, how we're supposed to take it.
Yeah. So then we find out, Pete finds out about Adonis' lineage, tells Rocky fight is big time now. So now Pete wants to capitalize off the fight now that he knows that Adonis is the son of Apollo. Rocky asks him to keep it between them, but he agrees. But we all know, he ain't gonna keep it between them. This is too big. This means money. This means advertising dollars and all kinds of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So Adonis has to go to the restroom right before the fight. He's nervous. Okay, I'm going to tell you something. Maybe this is too personal, but when I do videos or trivia matches, you know what I ended up doing before him? I swear, I'm not lying to you. The nerves get to you, and I can imagine this. That is so indicative. Me, and I'm not a boxer. I'm not an athlete or anything. But when I get when I do videos or I got to do trivia matches or whatever we do, I always have to go to the bathroom first because of nerves. That is so weird that he did that.
Well, again, it's another great character moment because it'd be real easy to just make him just like real tough and stoic. And, let's go do this. But he's a young kid. He's nervous. This is his first big fight. What's he going to do? So yeah, I like that moment just because I said it shows him as being, and they put a lot of these moments, with him and Bianca and stuff. They show him being vulnerable, and that was, that was how Rocky was. Rocky was very, as tough as he was a very vulnerable person. So I really like that they continue that with this character because, especially nowadays, when you have a character that's younger like that, that's I think the first instinct to just always be tough, always show how tough you are, and to let him show the other side, I think is really great.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. So then the first round of the fight doesn't go very well. Doesn't go good for Adonis versus Leo, but Adonis knocks Leo out in the third round, and then he said, 17-1. Of course, the competitor, you're gonna rub it in their face, 17-1.
That scene in general. I mean, let's just talk about this for a minute. This is probably my favorite boxing scene in any movie ever. Just how it's all one shot. And the way the camera's moving around the ring and zooming into Rocky and zooming the corners. It's so well crafted. And I've said this before. I've talked about this on other shows. The thing I love about Creed, it's the first Rocky movie really that has real boxing in it. I mean, let's face it, even going back to the early Rocky, once you get to Rocky 4, forget about it. But even the early, it's like no one ever does this. Everybody just leaves. It's like no wonder Rocky got brain damage because he never covered up. Or, there's a moment early on in this fight where they're just kind of filling each other out, and Leo throws a punch, and Donnie blocks it like that, and the crowd goes ooh. And I really think they put that in there because that is the first time I think in a Rocky movie ever that anybody actually blocked a punch. Like it's always just just punch and stand there and get punched. And this is like, I mean, it's still movie boxing, but it looks so much more like real boxing all through the movie, but especially this match. I love the way this is shot.
Yeah, the choreography is great. You're absolutely.
Yeah, I think they said they did like 15 takes, and they had to do like they were actually, because they're like punching and getting cut and stuff. Like they said, the way they had to, they had guys in the ring, the camera turned, putting the makeup on and everything. It was really a strenuous shot, but it turned out great. This is my favorite scene in the movie for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, you look. I'm a boxing fan from way back, and I like real. I could tell real boxing and not good boxing when it comes to choreography of boxing. And there's not a lot of boxing movies that get that right. But there's a few, and Creed is definitely one of them. All right, so Bianca comes to see Adonis in the ring after the fight, talks about his hands. Adonis sleeping after fight instead of hanging out with Bianca. Yeah, I mean, well, you're tired. You're not gonna, hang out with
that's another great moment where it's like, oh, let's go tear this town up, and then just smash cut to them crash on the couch.
Yeah.
And again, that just is a great moment of just him being like a real guy, being vulnerable. Being human after going through something like that, being hyped up, and then he's a young kid. He's hyped up, he wants to go, but then he just crashes. That's a really great moment.
And then she gives him earbuds with music on her phone, so she's basically giving him the music that she plays, and so he can hear it. Then she's singing the song. Says Rocky is he old? Won't hear. All right, so it basically says that Rocky's old, he won't hear the music. So basically that she can play the music for him, but they're not going to hear it because he's old. So and then they're eating breakfast. Bianca says, you have something you want to tell me. And then Adonis says, what's up? And then eventually he tells her the truth. She says he looks like his father, same as his father. Basically, once she knows that Rocky is his uncle, she puts 2 and 2 together that Adonis is the son of Apollo Creed. So even though she's deaf, she's not stupid. Yeah. She's smart, So then we get the news that breaks that, of course, that Adonis is actually the son of Apollo. It's on PTI. We get Michael Wilbon, and we're in Liverpool, England. And Conlon doesn't want to fight Adonis, but his trainer says he has to do it because he knocks out Danny Wheeler. So basically, Conlon's fight's done because he knocked out Danny Wheeler. Mm-hmm. He let his emotions get the better of him. So then this is the next best thing. Basically, Holiday, Graham McTavish says this is our chance. It's going to be a hype fight. You screwed up by knocking the other guy out at the press conference. So now this is what you're going to have to do. He doesn't want to fight Adonis, but he has to. He doesn't have a choice at this point. So Tommy calls Rocky about Adonis, asks if it's true that he's the son of Apollo. Asked Adonis to change his name to Creed. That was the one caveat that Tommy Holiday says. If we do the fight, it's got to be Adonis Creed and not Adonis Johnson, which, Adonis says he won't do it. And then he talks it over with Bianca. And of course, look, I'm not married. I haven't had a lot of girlfriends in my life. All right. I'm putting this out there. You're a married man and you have children and you have a life. Be honest with me, Kirk. You're going to ask your wife advice about things. So it's smart. It makes sense that he asks his girlfriend and she gives him some advice.
Yeah, and that's great. It's a really solid relationship. They really do. It's nice that they develop that, and they give her a lot of agency in this movie, where she's not just there to be the love interest and just to be scared when he's for him when he's boxing. Like she really has something to do in this movie, and she's really she really moves things forward for him in a lot of ways.
Bingo, absolutely, 100%. So. He's afraid about taking on the name and failing. So, which of course, if my last name was Larry Bird and I tried to become a basketball player, you don't think I'd be upset with myself if I failed and I didn't turn out to be a great basketball player? Of course you're going to be nervous about taking on such a legendary name of Creed and try to be a boxer. We've seen athletes. I'll just use Dale Earnhardt Jr. for instance. Look, was he Dale Earnhardt? No, he wasn't. And he never will be Dale Earnhardt. He was an okay race car driver, but is his career anywhere near as good as Dale Earnhardt? No.
Sure.
So there's a correlation there. We know that for a fact. And I know racing and boxing are different things, but that's a real life father-son deal. Yeah. Adonis says if he had anyone else in his corner, he wouldn't do it. Basically saying how much he cares about Rocky being there for him. Yeah. Says to himself he's fighting Pretty Ricky. Basically he's talking. I'm fighting Pretty Ricky Conlon. Yeah. Because if you have a big game or a big whatever, a sporting event or a concert, I'm doing such and such. You're excited. You're happy. I know if I'm doing something happy, I'd be done something important, I'll be happy, if I win a title or whatever. You won, you've done things, and I'm excited, So he says, so I'm fighting Pretty Ricky Conlon. Rocky gets sick and vomits. So Adonis yells at somebody to get a doctor. Fast forward, Rocky's in the hospital. Adonis and Bianca make Rocky dinner. Rocky gets a call from doctor. She tells him his test results came back positive for cancer. Now, okay, this is something to me. I'm going to veer off real quick here, Kirk. And, the Academy Awards, we know, are a popularity contest, okay? We know basically the best movies sometimes don't get the praise and get the adulation they deserve. In my opinion, this performance by Sylvester Stallone as Rocky in this particular film and this whole storyline about him getting cancer and some of the things he says, the dialogue that he's been given in this film, I think he got robbed for an Academy Award. I honestly 100% believe that he was the best supporting actor of the year that year. I like Mark Rylance. And I thought he was good in that film, but he wasn't as good as Sylvester Stallone in Creed.
I would have really liked to have seen him. And I'm glad you're bringing it up now because this scene in particular, when he finds out, when the doctor gives him the news, he just plays this so well. And again, I mean, Stallone has that reputation of just being like the dumb action guy, but this is like the way he plays that when she starts talking about treatment, and well, first what she tells him, and he just kind of like. And you see like that, okay, this is it, and he accepts it. And then when she talks about, and just his face when he's going through that real quick, and then she starts talking about treatment, and he starts to tear up a little bit. He's like, my wife tried that; it didn't work out too well for her. And you just feel that emotion and that anguish start to come back up in him, and you understand why he doesn't want to go through it. He's ready to pack it in. And it's like, again, we'll see later on. It's kind of like that push and pull because he has something new in his life, but he's lost so much. He's kind of like ready to pack it in. But yeah, that scene, I think that was his Oscar scene. I mean, if I don't know if that what scene they showed when they announced him on the Oscars, his nomination, but it definitely should have been this one because it was fantastic.
Yeah. So she tells him he's got a tumor in his kidneys, but the doctors did catch it early. Asked the doctor to not say anything about to anybody about it. Of course, tough guy. I don't want anybody to know that I'm sick. So Adonis finds results in Rocky's jacket pocket. Of course, we're gonna have that scene where they find out about what's actually going on with Rocky there, and then ask him if it's for real. Adonis tells him he needs to take care of it quick, basically telling him, get this stuff done, get whatever it is you need to get done to get yourself better. Rocky says he would like to have another day with his wife, basically what you just mentioned about wanting to basically give up, that's his way of saying, I want to have another day with my wife, You're like, oh my God, it's such a painful thing to hear,
Yeah.
So tells Adonis he has a future in that his life is in the past, basically saying that Adonis has got a future that his life isn't. No. And, of course, that's the mentor figure in him saying that you have a figure. You don't worry about me. My life is in the past. And of course, we're watching this and we're saying, no, Rocky, no,
yeah. But I see it's hard. And again, you understand what he's going through because, it's like he just, like I said, he just found something new in his life. And now he finds out his life might be ending. And it's kind of like he's accepting that. This whole sequence here, this whole part of the movie is kind of him like doing that, like push, like that tough love, like, go do your thing. You don't need me. I'm going to be a weight around your neck. I'm just going to go back. I'm going to just kind of fade to the background, die, and you'll go live your life and you'll be fine. To the point where he, I'm sure you're going to talk about this in a minute, where he, kind of just says, this isn't for real, kid. Just leave me alone.
Yeah. Now we go to Adonis goes to visit Bianca at the venue. She's got a concert and knocks a guy out at the show because he was talking trash about his father. Now this is, from what I gather, this is a real rapper or whatever. I didn't know that going into this, but rewatching it, I found out that this guy might have been an actual real rapper or a real rap mogul or something like this, the guy that he knocks out.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure. Like, I don't know the guy's name. I'm not familiar with him, but I think he is like an actual, musician.
Okay. So he gets arrested. Adonis does. Rocky has to bail him out. And Adonis is mad at him. Rocky says he's not his family, says he's got his real family killed. That was just, that's emotion getting to Adonis there. That's just a little bit of emotions. And that's it's not nice to say things like that, but I think his emotions were getting the better of him right there.
Sure. Yeah. It's, it's because I think, Rocky basically pushed him away, started pushing away, and that hurt because, I think he's at the point where he's finally feels like he has a father figure in his life, and now that guy's pushed him away. So I think he just said that purposely because he wanted to lash out and hurt Rocky the way he hurt him.
Yeah. Yeah. So Rocky says to Adonis is caught in his father's shadow. Okay. Yeah. That's basically what you were talking about. Rocky's, you're just caught in your father's shadow, And then of course, Adonis gets out of jail, goes to visit Bianca at her show, another show. Adonis tells Bianca about Rocky's illness, asks her not to close him out, basically, because I mean, he's making mistakes, but the people in his life are there for him that needs to be there, that means something, that he needs to confide in. They need to be there to help him, and he needs to not shut them out.
Yeah, and that's this whole movie. This is the down point of the movie, but I just love movies where it's people kind of finding their who don't have family, finding their family. No, it's not the family they're born with; it's the family you make.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's just a really good. Just watch it. That's one of my favorite things about this movie is watching the three of them kind of become a family.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So Bianca takes her hearing aids out. Adonis says he needs her, but she didn't hear him. All right, so this is basically her closing him out because of some of the decisions and things he's making. But he says behind the door, "I need you." And we know, because the way the camera tricks are in this, that she took the hearing aids out.
Yeah.
So this is a kind of a dramatic scene in the movie right here. So Adonis goes back to Rocky. So Rocky looks like he lost weight, says, "Get something to eat." So Rocky looks pretty sick, really sick at this point. Adonis says he isn't fighting unless Rocky fights. All right, so this is them two confronting each other about this. And then Rocky's in the hospital bed, and Adonis is shadow boxed in the hospital room, which is kind of a fun scene, because he's training while he's in the hospital bed.
Yeah,
Rocky. So that's I always got a kick out of that he's sick in the hospital in the bed, and Adonis is in there training, say, "Yo, do this, do that,"
Well, I like too that it's like they're both like you see, like it's his training montage, but it's also Rocky dealing with his sickness and his treatment and everything. So it's kind of like they're both going through their own fight here.
Yeah, absolutely. They're both going through their own fight at 100%. Training montage, like you just said, with everybody involved. Rocky thinks Ricky has a secret ready for Adonis. Okay, so basically, he's now thinking about strategy of where Pretty Ricky Conlon might be thinking about what to do about how to fight Adonis. So Adonis, he's out racing dirt bikes with the kids on the street with their four-wheelers. So they're over there. He's over there running and stuff, and they're over there with their dirt bikes. And this is kind of like the scene where Rocky was running and all the people start running behind him.
Yeah.
And now this is kind of like an updated scene with the kids on the dirt bike and the four-wheelers and stuff.
And that's what I love. But like I said, this movie takes what's the original and pays homage to it, but creates something completely new and something very, very unique to the new character. It's like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and once again, they take Rocky's song and they put it on this montage.
Yeah,
which, as a fan, you're like, yes, you got you just get the feels right there. If you don't get the feels for that, then you're just not human. But whatever. So fight is in England, Goodison Park. That's where Everton play. If you know anything about soccer, Goodison Park is in Everton Stadium because there's two teams in Liverpool and Everton. Soccer stadium. So press conference. Okay, so now we get to the press conference. Arguments ensue between Adonis and Ricky. Ricky asks Adonis to do him a favor when the fight is over. Bianca comes to visit. But all right, so this is where I know sports we're competitive, but there's a level to go to where you just don't go sometimes. There's just sometimes competitive. You can be competitive. You just got to be careful about the things you say as a competitor. You want to walk away from whatever it is, a basketball game, football game, boxing match, with your head held up, knowing that you you were a professional when you were dealing with it. And we already know that he punched the one guy out at the press conference. Pretty Ricky did, you know.
Yeah.
So Bianca comes out to visit Adonis in the room. Basically, this is the thing that he really needed, is to see that she still cares, you know. Adonis gets new trunks from Rocky, same color as his father's old trunks, the red, white, and blue, which we remember, you know. So that was nice of Rocky to do that. Another thing, what you just said, paying it forward, paying homage to the original. Rocky says he is going to see it in Adonis' eyes. He's going to win. I mean, you know, that's good. But, you know, as a trainer, that's the kind of thing you want. You know, you don't want your coach or your manager or your trainer to, oh, no, I see it in your eyes. You're not going to win. Yeah. That's the last thing you want. You know, you want to have somebody believe in you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Rocky says he gets nervous at times like this right before fights. So basically telling Adonis, hey, don't worry about being nervous, because I used to get nervous before the fight as well, you know? So, of course, Michael Buffer, you know, we all been watching boxing our whole life. You know, Michael Buffer is like the king, you know, of announcers. You'll love it. Hearing Michael Buffer call the announcing at the beginning. Pretty Ricky Conlon is 36-0. Max Kellerman and Jim Lampley play. So these are the announcers, the HBO announcers. Both of them I mentioned at the beginning. They actually do this for a living. Max Kellerman and Jim Lampley do so, and they're naming, which I got a kick out of. They named Adonis Hollywood Adonis Creek, because he's from California. Yeah, so I mean, it's a good name, but I mean, you don't want to be called Hollywood, really. I mean, be honest with me. You don't want anybody, because that's the last thing. When the guy across the thing is like, oh, you're Hollywood, or yeah, trust me, I'll show you what Hollywood is, you know. But thank God there's a different outcome in this, you know.
Yeah.
Rocky says, close his big mouth. So basically, you know, don't be saying a bunch of stuff. Adonis' eye is cut open. Punch after the bell. So it doesn't take long, and Adonis is already cut open in this fight. Adonis catches Ricky. So Adonis is catching Ricky. What a good shot here. Ricky says, woke up at a sleeping giant. So Ricky tells this guy, I woke up a sleeping giant, basically.
Yeah. I mean, this fight's paced really well. Just the way it's, you know, it starts out and he goes in and he's getting, you know, he's scared at first, he's getting beat down, and then just how he slowly goes in the back and forth. It comes. Yeah, it's a great. It's one of the great Rocky fights, like final Rocky fights of the series.
Yeah. So basically, Ricky's trainers are yelling and saying, hey, finish him off. Adonis, not as far behind as people think, as far as that goes. And then Rocky's like, you versus you. He's in the way. Get him out of the way. Mm-hmm. Which, you got to love that. Boy, get him out of the way, you know?
Yeah.
So Rocky comments with a big shout to Adonis, connects with Ricky, I'm sorry. Ricky connects with a big shot to Adonis. Everyone's yelling, get up. So this is that slow-mo scene when you think he's going to lose, but we all know he's not going to lose, because, you know, this is a Rocky movie, you know. I mean, well, yeah, I guess I shouldn't have said that, but
He's going to lose like that.
Yeah. I forgot about that. So he eventually gets back up, and then Adonis makes it to the next round. So, which is, you know, he survives when he gets knocked down and makes it to the next round. Of course, Bianca's over there worried about him. Now we see Adonis, and his left eye is cut. His right eye is closed. The guy can barely see, but he's out there still fighting.
Yeah, I love that scene with the refs, like how many fingers. So you just see Rocky's hand tap him 3 times to tell him how many fingers. Little slick stuff like that.
Yeah, that was great. You gotta love that. Those little things, those little nuances that really kind of make this film really a great film. let me see here where I was at here. So, all right, so okay. Rocky reiterates to Adonis the speech from earlier in the film, which we all mentioned: one ring, one fight, one, that whole thing, that whole spiel that we already talked about. Back and forth at the end of the fight, Conlon down, and he gets up. Now we end up with a draw here. We end up going to the cards. Because Conlon gets knocked down, but he gets back up. The fight is over, and Adonis ends up losing on points or the scorecards
by decision.
Yeah, by a decision. So, which interesting enough, we know what happened in the first movie, Rocky.
Yeah,
and so it kind of makes sense that he would lose and not win in a big match like this, because it really is similar to the first fight where,
well, I mean, I think it's, I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't want to cut you off there.
Where we know Rocky lost.
Yeah.
But it wasn't about the fight. It was about everything else. It was about Bianca. It was about Rocky. It was about Apollo. It was about everything else. And it showed that he lost, that it wasn't about that.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's what when he said, how going back to the scene in the gym when he says, that's that point in the mirror, that's your biggest opponent, and when he says, when he tells him during the fight, get him out of the way. It wasn't about the fight; it was about him coming over, and I love that part. One of my favorite parts of the whole movie is I remember when I saw it for the first time, and I was getting emotional. He's because. Rocky wants to stop the fight because he's had now he's dealing with all his issues with Apollo and what happened with Apollo. I should have stopped that fight, and I didn't. I need to stop this fight. And and Creed wants to keep going. It's like, why do you want to keep going? He's like to prove I wasn't a mistake. And you realize that moment why he's done everything is just to prove that he belongs here, that he means something, he has value and worth, and that's what he did in the fight. It does just like the first fight. The win didn't matter. Let's face it. It would have made it a lot in both cases. You have a basically an amateur fighter coming up and fighting like a established great fighter. To have them knock that guy out would be pretty unrealistic. Yeah. So to have him go the distance, have the heart to make it through, but still lose by decision, that's fine. And it's just like Rocky. Like I love it, Rocky, when the announcers announcing the winner in Rocky 1, like you barely even hear it. Like it's like in the background because Rocky's looking for Adrian, and it's inconsequential. He did what he came to do, and just like the same thing in this movie, he proved himself. He proved that he could do it, that he's worthy of the legacy. And that's what was important about it.
No, you're absolutely right. And then, the whole thing comes full circle here. Adonis says to Rocky that he is his family with Bianca, which is what you've been harping on this whole entire time. Says he's proud to be a Creed. Then you got to love that part because he didn't know he was a Creed. He didn't know what his lineage was, but when he found out, and then now he didn't even want to use his last name, but now he's proud to be a Creed. Yeah. He's proud to have that name of Creed because he knows what that name means now after he's been through what he's been through.
Yeah, definitely.
Rocky and Adonis visit famous steps in Philadelphia, PA. We know those steps. Rocky says, if you look hard enough, you can see your whole life from up here. Adonis says, how does it look, Rocky? Not bad. I mean, okay, what a great way to end this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great way to end this movie with those two. And if you're going to, I'm going to go off of something you said right at the beginning. If you're going to make a reboot of a franchise, this is what you want to do. I mean, yeah. and like I said, I love the Rocky franchise, and I will not sugarcoat it. I am a huge fan of Rocky 1, 2, 3, 4. They're just great films. If you're a fan of movies, a fan of sports, if you're a fan of entertainment, they're just great. And Creed really does that. I mean, it really checks all those boxes that the previous films have checked to make this a really genuine, great sports movie, great character study, great entertainment and all that stuff. But I always like to ask the question, Kirk, of my guests, where do you think this film will stand in the overall film community, the sports community, the sports movies community, 10, 20, 30 years? And as far as you as a person, how this film means, what this film means to you?
Yeah, I definitely think, down the road, 20, 30 years, I think it's going to be, I think the cream's going to rise to the top. I think the movies that people remember are going to be Rocky 1 and Creed. And I think those are the two, because I think it's just because, I like the early Rocky movies. I'm not a biggest fan. Like I really, honestly, I don't love Rocky 4 and Rocky 5 just because they get so over the top. And I love that Creed takes it back to takes it back to basics. And I think those are the two movies because, Creed is that version of Rocky in its purest form. I think, they're both good, when, it's 40 years separated, the timeline. But when you get down the road 30 years from now, they're both old movies. I think those are the two that are going to stand out to people. Me personally, this is this is my favorite Rocky movie. Rocky 1's close, but this is my favorite Rocky movie. It's my favorite. It's definitely up there as one of my favorite boxing movies, one of my favorite sports movies. This is one that I go back to and I really enjoy. And like I said, because it's does such a great job honoring what came before, it reminds you of the old Rocky movies without being overly, nostalgic or leaning on that too hard. But it still does a great new thing. This is a movie I'm going to love for a long time.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, Kirk. I saw Creed, and I loved it when I saw it, but I just didn't like it as much as some of the early Rockies. Mm-hmm. And as a fan of boxing, it wasn't one of my favorite boxing films. But having rewatched it 5 years later, I had much more of appreciation for it in context to boxing films in general, Rocky films. And so that just tells you how much 5 years made a difference for me. And if 5 years can make a difference for me, what will 10 years do? What will 15, 20 years down the line do for people, and how resonant? And like you said, you might even put these in a conversation, maybe not the entire conversation, but in a similar conversation as Godfather and Godfather Part 2.
Sure.
Rocky and Creed. Like you can't separate them at that point. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Because you go full circle between Rocky and then Creed. You really do. It's like, the circle of life, as they say in The Lion King. Mm-hmm. But I was really, I told you, because I wanted to end season 1 with Rocky. I wanted to begin season 2 with Creed. And I think having you do this, and I know how much this film meant to you. I was just glad to have you talk about it. And I could see the passion in you when you talked about this film. And it really showed me how much more I appreciate it, having given a chance to rewatch it and now have this conversation with you about it. But that means we have come to the end of Bleacher Features, and thank you once again, Kirk. And where can you be found?
I'm all over, Full Metal, Multiplex, all the online trivia community leagues. But Facebook, you find me on Facebook. But the main place I want people to track me down is Letterboxd. Kirk Kowolkowski or Kirk Kowal on Letterboxd. Come on there. We talk about movies more.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me at Dan Skip Allen on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. Also, I am a film critic in the Orlando, Florida area. And for their website called disappointmentmedia.com. Don't at me. I didn't come up with the name. I just write for them. And I do all kinds of stuff. I do retrospectives on past actors that may have passed away, movies that they were in. I do film reviews of movies that are coming out in theaters right now. I do some awards coverage. I do a little bit of everything for them. And if I'm not writing for them, I'm writing for my own personal blog from the fourth row at wordpress.com. So if you feel like reading anything I have written, those are the two places. I do a lot of writing from the fourth row at wordpress.com and disappointmentmedia.com. Also, I do 2 YouTube shows, Top 5 Weekly, right in the middle of when this comes out, I'll have already done an Academy Awards month-long series. And this will be the first episode of my summer series, Bleacher Features. If you're watching this, it's a summer series, and it goes through the summer where myself and guests talk about various sports movies. So for Kirk and myself, good evening, everybody.